Hello friends, I'm glad to welcome you to my channel. Today we are going to talk about Japan's rigid beauty standards and whether body positivity exists in Japan. What sacrifices are locals willing to make just to meet these beauty standards? How is sumo so popular in a country where everyone strives for a lean body? And is it true that curvy body types were once considered fashionable in Japan? Many people consider Japan to be the country with the highest tolerance and respect for others. In fact, it is, but only if it does not concern appearance and body shape. Beauty standards here are really strict. Not only the face and skin are important, but also weight. The concepts of slimness and fullness in Japan are very different from what we are used to. People whom we would call thin may no longer meet local beauty standards in Japan. Let me tell you about an incident from my life. I went to a Japanese hospital because I had a small swelling around my spine, and it was bothering me. I went there with a translator and asked what I should do about it. Maybe I needed some ointment. The doctor told me to look at myself. I was surprised and didn't understand him. Then he said that I had fat accumulating there, but it was nothing serious, and that I just needed to lose weight. I was shocked because I weigh 51 kilograms and don't see any need to lose weight. He even hinted at it twice, or rather, he didn't just hint but told me directly that I needed to lose weight because fat had accumulated in the area of my spine. I was so surprised that I told the doctor that I was not a camel, so how could I have fat accumulating in one place like that? The interpreter laughed and said she wouldn't translate it. So I was left completely confused because I really don't consider myself fat. Maybe I could lose weight in some areas, but I am not so big that I should have fat accumulating around my spine. That's a life story to ponder. Japan has one of the lowest obesity rates in the world. Only about 4% of the population is overweight. For comparison, in the United States, this figure exceeds 40%, and in European countries, it ranges from 15% to 30%. As for body shape, rounded forms, which are often associated with femininity in other countries, are not particularly valued here. In Japan, the main criteria for beauty are cuteness, neatness, and slimness. The younger and more delicate you look, the better. The obsession with youth, schoolgirl aesthetics, and thinness is everywhere. Small clothing sizes, a thin face, and a fragile physique are the standards that millions of Japanese women aspire to. The image of a sweet, innocent girl who looks like a schoolgirl is promoted in movies, television, and fashion magazines. At the same time, lush shapes are perceived as something undesirable. Even if a girl does not have a pronounced waist or hips, it is not considered a disadvantage. On the contrary, a slender, almost teenage physique is seen as attractive. This attitude of the Japanese toward their bodies and food gives me a lot of contradictory thoughts. On the one hand, yes, the Japanese, like many other Asians, do look very slim, and only a small percentage of people have problems with being overweight. This is immediately noticeable, especially when compared to other countries. But on the other hand, there is an incredibly huge cult of food here. I was talking to a Japanese man, and he asked me what the most important thing in life was for me. I answered that it was happiness, the health of my loved ones, and other similar things. He was surprised that I didn't say food, because, according to him, it is the main purpose of our existence. I started to disagree, and he told me that I think differently because the Japanese believe that the meaning of life is food. They can talk about food for hours, who ate what for breakfast, who ate what for lunch, and what everyone's taste preferences are. For me, it was such a shock and a kind of discovery. The Japanese love food. It's their favorite topic of discussion. They can argue for a long time about which fish is tastier, which sauce is better, or even just admire a beautifully presented dish. Japanese people are said to eat in small portions, and their traditional lunch or dinner consists of many small plates of different foods. But when it comes to a traditional Japanese meal, yes, indeed, it often looks like this, but not always. In many local establishments, because of the great competition, the choice of dishes is quite small. For example, you go to a specialized cafe that makes only ramen, and they will bring you just a large plate of food. Or you go to a place where they make curry, and you will also be served a dish as if it were for 3 people. They serve huge portions everywhere. I've noticed that Japanese people eat them all and still remain so slim. Perhaps Asians are not as prone to weight gain as Europeans. I'm interested to know what you think about this, so please write in the comments. And by the way, it's important to note that the Japanese are much more prone to diabetes than we are. Many Japanese people have problems with insulin production. This lack of insulin means less glycogen from the blood enters the cells, resulting in fewer energy reserves being stored. But this also means that glycogen remains in the blood, and blood sugar levels in the Japanese are always higher than normal, which leads to the development of diabetes. Diabetes develops not because of an increase in body weight, but because of an increase in calorie intake. It is clear that the more calories consumed, the more is stored as fat, but also the higher the blood sugar level, and, accordingly, the faster diabetic complications develop. It's all interconnected. So why are the Japanese so obsessed with slimness standards? First and foremost, it has to do with societal opinion. An overweight person in Japan can face condemnation and ridicule. Standing out from the crowd here is considered not just uncomfortable but undesirable. In Japan, there are cafes with maids. These establishments are very popular among Japanese people and tourists. In traditional maid cafes, cute Japanese girls wear stylized maid costumes. Their task is to make the guests stay in the establishment longer. After all, in such cafes, the entrance is paid, and the time of stay is charged by the hour. There are also some unusual variations of these cafes. For example, maid cafes where plus-size girls work, and the demand for such places is also very high. The Japanese go there not for the food or the atmosphere but just to look at the unusual maids. Recently, a Korean blogger visited one of these maid cafes, where the girls weren't thin. He openly criticized them, calling them fat in a disdainful way. Of course, he recorded these videos for an American audience, and the Americans strongly condemned this behavior, saying that you can't mock health problems like that, because very often, if a person gains excess weight, it is due to health deterioration. This blogger then had to change his behavior, modify the title of his video, and even edit some parts. This mania for thinness is also about health. Asians have a higher predisposition to diabetes and cardiovascular disease. That's one reason why Japan has a law that requires companies to send their employees for regular physical exams. Everyone over the age of 40 must have their waist measured. If the waist circumference exceeds the acceptable standards, 85 centimeters for men and 90 centimeters for women, the person is referred for a nutritional consultation with the option of having a weight loss program designed for them. My husband struggles with weight, and after learning about this policy, we asked for some advice at the hospital on how he could lose weight. He is not yet in his 40s, so he doesn't fall under this program, and we just asked what we could do. To which the doctor said to eat less, and that was the only recommendation. We asked if there was a special diet, and the doctor just told us to check the internet. If, for example, in the CIS countries you ask for some kind of diet, they will give you a list of products and some recommendations. But in Japan, the food is completely different, and honestly, it's hard to choose because many flavors are unfamiliar. Or, on the contrary, you try something, like it, and then wonder how much of it you can actually eat. How will it affect your figure and your health? If we know that we have potatoes, baked goods, and everything fatty, Japanese products are still a little different. And out of ignorance, you can also end up tasting and choosing too much, which will also be stored as fat. The doctor simply said, eat less. That was the recommendation. In Japan, there's an idol pop group that is still causing a lot of controversy to this day. It's called Big Angel, and its members are plus-size girls. Their main goal is to prove that not only miniature, skinny girls can become idols, but also those who do not fit into the standard framework. A channel that talks about pop culture in Japan, Korea, and other Asian countries has a video dedicated to this group, and it's called Meet Big Angel, the fattest idol group. As for the correctness of the title, you can judge for yourself. No one is particularly careful with words. The group constantly faces hate and rejection. Many people in Japan think that their appearance is not suitable for the stage, especially for idols, where slimness and cuteness are often considered more important than vocal skills. But despite the criticism, the girls continue to perform, record songs, and do what they love. They also have loyal fans, but it's worth noting that the girls aren't exactly advocating for a healthy body positivity movement. They call themselves fallen angels who fell from heaven because of their weight. Their story is based on the idea that they can only get back to heaven by shedding their pounds. Therefore, it's hard to say that they promote self-acceptance. The members have faced criticism and rejection since childhood because of their weight. But instead of giving up, they decided to turn this feature into their signature trait, and they succeeded. Unfortunately, however, their popularity has more to do with being seen as a gimmick than with their outstanding vocal performance. People often come to their performances out of curiosity to see an unusual idol group. Another bright star who breaks the stereotypes of beauty standards in Japan is Naomi Watanabe. She is a very popular presenter, comedian, and actress who is adored for her incredible sense of humor. But her real fame came from her parody of Beyoncé. Her video went viral, and the nickname Japanese Beyoncé stuck to her. Many Japanese people judged her and laughed at her, thinking she disgraced her country. But Naomi didn't care, and she achieved incredible success. Now she lives in the United States. Despite the love of her Japanese fans, the American audience probably offers her more freedom and less pressure related to appearance. Against this backdrop, body positivity has hardly developed in Japan. The idea of accepting yourself as you are remains rare. For many Japanese people, standing out means breaking the unspoken rules of society. At the same time, there are individual bloggers on social media who talk about body acceptance, but they face criticism and ridicule, with people saying they are just making excuses for laziness or that it's their responsibility to lose weight. Do Japanese people say what they think directly to someone's face? Not really. Here, it's not customary to embarrass others, but Japanese people might still hint at weight or make an awkward joke. We had two situations in our life. My husband and I went to a sushi bar where the chef cooks in the center, and around him is a round table where visitors sit, order, and he prepares everything for them. We had just arrived in Japan and wanted to try different kinds of sushi, so we ordered one of each kind. When we ate 6 pieces with him and asked for the 7th, the chef laughed, pointed at my husband, stroked his stomach, and asked if we really wanted more. And you know, my husband chuckled, but it was really unpleasant because it turned out we were being asked if we were sure we could fit another piece in. The Japanese are usually as polite and tactful as possible, but this situation was unpleasant because it was a hint that it was time to stop. And there was another situation, by the way, not so long ago. My husband told me that he was standing in our building, calling the elevator, when a Japanese man of a very respectable age came up, pointed at my husband's stomach, and said that he was a sumo wrestler, and then laughed. My husband blushed because he's overweight, but he is far, far from being a sumo wrestler, and that was also a little unpleasant. Situations like these give you an idea of how Japanese people perceive the topic of weight. This obsession with slimness starts in childhood. Japanese children are taught from an early age to eat right, play sports, and live a healthy lifestyle. School lunches are carefully balanced, and exercise classes are mandatory. Teenagers may taunt or bully their peers if they look even slightly fuller than local norms. Eating disorders such as anorexia and bulimia are becoming more common in Japan. Currently, around 200,000 people in Japan suffer from anorexia. According to research, about 20% of young Japanese women have experienced eating disorders, and that's just those who are open about it. So I think the real figure is much higher. All this leads to strange and sometimes even creepy trends that destroy health. Every country has different diets and ways to lose weight quickly, but now I will tell you about some that were, or even still are, popular in Japan. White water diet. People drink only water, adding salt and lemon to trick themselves into mentally imagining that they ate something salty or sour, rather than just drinking water. Of course, you can't last long on such a diet. Cabbage soup diet. You eat only cabbage soup for a week, and yes, the weight drops. But so do your energy, overall well-being, and probably even your will to live. Fitness in hot rooms. It already sounds intimidating, but people do it. The idea is that the more you sweat, the more weight you lose. In reality, you're just losing water, not fat, and on top of that, you risk fainting from dehydration. Being slim in Japan is almost an obligation. Advertising, social media, and fashion all scream at you to lose weight. Everyone's favorite idols resort to terribly exhausting workouts and completely abnormal diets. For example, a South Korean singer had to quickly lose a few pounds. Her diet consisted of 1 apple for breakfast, 1 sweet potato for lunch, and a protein drink for dinner. This was supplemented by training twice a day. As a result, she lost 4 kilograms in 4 days. Another singer ate only 500 calories a day and lost 10 kilograms in a month. Few people talk about the consequences, both physical and psychological. But young girls and boys see the beautiful picture and want to be like their idols. And now the question, how is it that in Japan, where there is a cult of thinness and everyone dreams of being slim, sumo is still so popular? After all, sumo is a sport where the main trick of the participants is to have a very large weight. The largest wrestlers can weigh more than 250 kilograms, and record holders even reach 290 kilograms. Do the Japanese not see some contradictions here? Sumo is not just a sport but a part of national culture. It is a kind of sacred art that the Japanese grow up with. Sumo wrestlers are treated with great respect because they are not just people with a lot of weight but real keepers of tradition. They spend years observing a discipline that, to many of us, would seem just crazy. And, by the way, despite their size, sumo wrestlers are incredibly agile and resilient. They can easily do the splits or complete a workout that would leave most of us exhausted. Sumo wrestlers don't eat just anything. Their diet is not only about volume but also about specific dishes. The biggest hit is chankonabe, a thick soup with meat, fish, vegetables, and tofu. It seems like just a soup, but sumo wrestlers eat it in huge quantities, adding a lot of rice, and it helps them gain the mass they need. It's also interesting that in sumo, everything is based on a strict hierarchy. Junior wrestlers handle all the chores, cooking, cleaning, and washing their seniors' belongings. It's kind of like a school of life, where you learn not only to fight but also to respect your elders. And yes, your salary depends on your rank. If you reach the highest rank in sumo, you can live well, wear fancy clothes, and have special hairstyles. But beginners walk around in a modest uniform and do all the hard work. Sumo wrestlers live in special training facilities, where they sleep, eat, and, of course, train endlessly. By the way, the career of a sumo wrestler is quite short. Due to the heavy weight and constant physical strain, many compete for only a few years before retiring. After that, former sumo wrestlers often lose weight and, for example, open restaurants. Sumo is not only about physical strength but also about strategy, patience, and respect for the opponent. That's what the Japanese value most. So yes, while the Japanese generally aspire to be slim, sumo wrestlers are a different story for them. By the way, not so long ago, there was an interesting incident involving sumo wrestlers. They flew to the southern part of the country for a competition, and a group of 27 sumo wrestlers had to be divided into 2 separate flights so that one plane would not be overloaded. The airline had to organize an extra flight for safety reasons. The trend of thinness in Japan is not something eternal. In fact, if you look back at history, you can see that beauty ideals here have changed over time. There were periods when slimness was not considered the standard at all, and fuller figures symbolized health and well-being. In the Heian era, beauty was associated with soft shapes, roundness, and even excess weight. Women with fuller figures were considered attractive because it symbolized wealth and health. Thinness at that time was associated with poverty and disease. In the Edo period, slender figures, but not too thin, gradually became fashionable. Women with strong, even muscular bodies were the ideal then, as it indicated their stamina and ability to work in the family. When Japan began to open up to the West, trends changed again. Western fashion and European beauty standards began to influence Japanese ideals. Women started striving for slimmer figures to fit the new modern image. During this period, the idea that slimness was elegant began to take shape. Now, the cult of thinness has truly taken hold. Do you agree with beauty standards that force people to sacrifice their health for the sake of conforming to trends? What are your thoughts on body positivity? Do you think it should become more widespread in Japan? Friends, thank you all so much for watching. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this topic in the comments. Please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching. Love you, send kisses and see you in the new videos. Bye bye.